Hello, my name is Jenny McFarland, and I work with Tucson Bird Alliance down in Tucson, Arizona. And I work here full time as a biologist, doing science with native birds of Southeast Arizona, as well as sometimes working throughout the entire state of Arizona. It's a really fun job. I really enjoy birds and bird watching and getting out to look at birds. So it's pretty great to have a job where I get to do things with science and birds pretty much every day. So I got into the field of bird science, or like sort of conservation biology is another term for it, by just being interested as a young person in birds and bird watching. I really liked reading books and watching nature shows about birds. And then when I got a little older in high school, I joined some clubs and other groups where we went out bird watching periodically and did some high school competitions with environmental science that were really fun. And then when I went to college, I went to the University of Arizona in Tucson and got a degree in conservation biology. So that's just a fancy term for trying to study the science of birds and wildlife and what we need to protect them into the future. And I do want to just make sure that you guys understand that it is possible to get jobs in the bird and wildlife field. If you are interested in nature, animals, wildlife, birds, insects, bats, any of those sorts of categories of animal, there are a lot of jobs that are associated with studying these animals and all sorts of different types of, whether it be from sort of ecotourism, where you take people and show them the birds and wildlife, or nonprofit conservation jobs like what I have, or even like working in like the national parks type or the national forest. So there's a lot of different job opportunities. So if you are interested in birds and wildlife and you continue to be interested in them as you get older, just keep in mind that it is possible to spend a lot of time learning about birds and wildlife and then spending a lot of time studying them. So I want to share with you today one of the projects that I do for work, which is the Tucson Bird Count. And this is literally a very large urban bird count that happens here in Tucson, where we have volunteers who help us go out all around the Tucson Valley, so a large city in southeast Arizona, and we look for birds and wildlife. So here's sort of like a map of where some of our points are. So this is in the Tucson Valley, south of Phoenix, and we have people that visit these points every single year, every spring, and help us look for birds. They go to the same point every single spring between April 15 and May 15. They stand on the exact same location and they'll do a count for 5 minutes. And this survey has been going since 2001. And the reason this is important for science is that we've been doing the exact same locations for many years, and we can track how birds have changed over time. Now, I know you're not in Tucson right now, but in Phoenix, there is a similar project. So, Arizona State University does the long-term monitoring bird census, which is the a really interesting project, and it's very similar, where this is sort of the Phoenix Valley, and all these little dots are locations that they have surveyed or have had bird watching volunteers, people who can tell the different birds apart, will visit these points and survey them and record all the birds that they see and hear, and therefore collect data where you can look for trends over time. So I thought it'd be fun with the few minutes we have to look at uh, some of the species that we follow with the Tucson bird count. But I also want to talk briefly about why this even matters. So I do have some information here. So why do we even do an urban bird count? A lot of people who want to look at birds will go out into nature, they'll go out to a national park, somewhere more pristine, and look for birds there. So why are we even doing an urban bird count right here in the city? So one of the reasons we do it is because many birds live in the city. So these are some photos at different parts of Tucson. One here is on the left is downtown Tucson, and on the right is more like what we call the foothills area, where it's a little more natural, a lot more trees and vegetation. And as time has gone on and cities get bigger and bigger, more and more parts of these valleys, the Phoenix Valley and the Tucson Valley, start to look really, really urban. So this is a map taken from space showing the Phoenix Valley in 1972. So it's a long time ago, 1972. And you can see what the pink areas are showing here is impervious surfaces. So this is like roads, rooftops, parking lots, that kind of thing. And from 1972 to 2011, it's been a huge change. You can see how much bigger. So let me go back again, 1972 to 2011. There's a huge shift in how much of the valley has been changed to city, basically. Okay, away from natural habitat to city. And what if all backyards look like this, right? So we can't stop the city necessarily from growing, but when backyards look so sort of sterile and dry and there's not a lot of native vegetation, there's really no place for birds to be in this habitat or in this sort of situation. But what if you made your yard look more like this, where it was full of native plants, had a lot of opportunities for birds and wildlife, had flowers for the hummingbirds and water for the quail, and just native plants for the birds to use for their habitat. So that's the point behind things like the Tucson Bird Count and the ASU long-running urban bird study is if you look at these different sorts of areas that can occur in the Tucson Valley, where you have an area where it's still city, people still live here. This isn't just like a national park, people live here, but there's a lot more trees, a lot more native plants versus like just densely urban Tucson. And then, of course, these yards that are pretty barren, don't provide a lot of food or shelter for birds and wildlife. Um, so that's the reason we focus on the urban habitat and why it's important. And I just wanted to go through just a few of the birds that we have studied with the Tucson Bird Count. So a really popular one here, really beautiful one, of course, is the broad-billed hummingbird. This is a male. He's blue and green. He's very, very pretty. Very, very cute hummingbird. We have them in Tucson, in certain parts of Tucson, and you have them in Phoenix as well. They're just a really nice blue-green hummingbird. The male has the blue-green and the red bill, and a female looks a little bit different. Here's the female, where she's a little bit more whitish on the front with a white stripe and a red bill. So this is broad-billed hummingbird. And this is live data from the Tucson Bird Count. So online on our website, the Tucson Bird Count website has these maps that anybody can access. So when I'm looking at the broad-billed hummingbird data, you can see that they do occur in the Tucson Valley for the Tucson Bird Count. And this whole area here is the Tucson sort of city valley. But you can see they're not really on the west side. They're far more on the east side. And as we zoom in, and it gets a little more fine, I can see here from the data that they really cluster along Tanque Verde Wash and over here closer to Agua Caliente Wash. And then over here on the 49ers sort of country club. So we have two natural areas where they occur. These are natural washes with like sort of natural trees and vegetation. But then also this country club is doing quite well for them. And that's really important information for us because we want to try to understand how we can so for this area, which is an urban area, it's a big sort of golf course country club, and the broad-billed hummingbirds do well there. How can we make more of the city look like that in terms of habitat so that the hummingbirds will use it? So like this whole section of Tucson where you don't get broadbills at all, what could we add? Like, could we add native plants? Could we add a little more water features? Like, what could we add? So Anna's hummingbird is another great one to look at in the data. There's a really pretty hummingbird. You may have seen them in your yard. The male has this pink face, shiny pink face that really catches the light. Really pretty bird that many people have in your yard. They do pretty well in urban habitat. They do well in Phoenix and Tucson both. Is a female. She's got a white belly and more of a white face with a little bit of pink on the throat. And they do, if you have a hummingbird feeder at your house, they're very aggressive and will guard it. But a very, very interesting, good urban hummingbird. And let's look at their species diversity. Okay. So we look at Anna's hummingbird, and we can see here they're more widespread throughout the city, which is what I would expect. I know that this hummingbird does a little better in urban habitat. They're a little more adapted to using people's yards and hummingbird feeders. And when I zoom in a bit more, it becomes a little more clear where they're clustered throughout the city because it's not everywhere. So when I zoom out on this heat map showing where the occurrences have happened, where the sightings have happened, you zoom out and you can see it's quite a lot of it's a big color of red. There's many Anna's hummingbirds found on the Tucson Bird Count in Tucson. But as I zoom in, you can see it's a little more clustered. So it's this particular patch, which is near Reed Park. It's this area here along Tanque Verde Wash where the broadbills also were doing very well. But then you have this lovely area up here along the Pantano Wash in Tucson, where you get a lot of Annas up here in northern Tucson. So the Anna's hummingbirds do a little better throughout Tucson, but they're still not everywhere. Okay, so that's an important point. There's still parts of the valley where you just don't, like over here in the foothills, where you just don't get a lot of Anna's hummingbirds. So perhaps that area needs some more native flowers planted or some more habitat improvements to make the city better for Anna's hummingbirds in that area, which is why we do this big count. And the last one I want to share with you is Roadrunner. Greater Roadrunner, very popular. Everyone loves Greater Roadrunners. They're really, really cool birds. Um, they do well in Phoenix and Tucson. They're never super common, even in natural native habitat. They're always a little kind of spaced out, but they can be quite well adapted to urban settings. So let's go ahead and look at the map and see where greater roadrunners occur in Tucson. Now, they definitely do occur, but boy, it's more in the sort of southwest side and the southeast side and a little bit to the north, but really not very much in the center of Tucson. So this whole central part, the most densely urban part of Tucson, doesn't really have really hardly any greater roadrunner sightings. Greater roadrunners do eat a lot of lizards, and this could probably be the problem here, is that because everything is so paved, there just isn't a lot of opportunities for lizards. Therefore, you don't get a lot of greater roadrunners. So this is a really interesting study that we're trying to understand more about why the city can be good, why certain parts of cities like Tucson or Phoenix can be very productive for native birds, but can be, and then other parts can be much less so. And how can we bring it together to make more of the city good for birds and wildlife? So this is sort of the conservation part of conservation biology, trying to help create more habitat for these birds and wildlife. I also want to share with you, if you are interested in birds and wildlife, that there are a lot of opportunities around you for you and your family to go and learn about birds and bird watching. So if you're ever in Tucson, we do have free field trips that we offer. You just have to check our website if you're coming through. Now, we do sometimes offer some field trips in other parts of the state, but mostly they're in the Tucson area. And one that we do every single week is Sweetwater Wetlands. We do it every Wednesday, either 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. starting. It depends on what time of year. So check the website if you're going to be coming down. But Sweetwater Wetlands, which is a really nice area on the west side of Tucson, we do a free field trip every single Wednesday there, and that's a really fun opportunity. Also, the Maricopa Audubon Society, which is up in the Phoenix area, on their website offers free field trips, and these are really fun. You can go with your family, and people there are very nice and will help you learn about birds and show you birds in the area. And then a really interesting opportunity is that the Gilbert Water Ranch, which is sort of in the Gilbert area, Gilbert Water Ranch has a lot of support from the Desert Rivers Audubon Society, which is like a club focused on birds and bird watching. And they do family bird walks every third Saturday, October through March, from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at the Dragonfly Ramada. And that they even will bring binoculars for you to use and send small groups out with expert birders for short walks. So that's a really fun opportunity. And it looks like they even have an early birds as a kids birding club. So if you're interested in birds and you'd like to learn a little bit more about them, there's a lot of really good opportunities in the Phoenix area and the Tucson area, and then throughout the state too. Other Audubon societies in the northern part of the state will offer similar opportunities. And I hope you enjoyed this talk and learning a little bit more about some of the bird science and conservation. And that if you're interested in birds, I would just encourage you to just get out there and look at them, put up a hummingbird feeder in your yard so you can watch them a little more closely, and just enjoy getting out there and looking at birds and wildlife. It's a lot of fun. Thank you.